fundamentalist Christian churches and religion, I realized that I had never noticed before how churches teach their members to fear God. Now, not all churches do this, but it is the cornerstone of Christianity. The fear of God is the beginning of wisdom, or so some translations go. There's such a, I'm not even sure what to call it. There is such a psychological conditioning and belief system that Christians worry about how they're perceived by God, how God sees them. And it's very exhausting to see the world this way. I mean, to fear God, fearing consequences. Now, there's nothing wrong with having a genuine fear of a consequence, especially if what the consequence comes from is a terrible thing to do. The whole problem is when people fear God so much that they live their whole lives in fear of a boogeyman. Like, I can't do this not because it's bad, but because I've been so indoctrinated into thinking this is wrong, I can't do it. I lived my whole life afraid of doing, watching, reading, listening to anything, because I was genuinely afraid something bad would happen. And it's no way to live. I mean, the only thing you have to fear is fear itself, as FDR used to say back in the 40s. Or was it the 30s? I think it was 1933. But there's something about religion that makes everybody terrified of just living their lives. The idea that God is going to strike you dead if you do something is something my parents taught me all the time. It's exhausting. And this is why people have anxiety, why Christians seem depressed. I have not met 10 Christians in my life that ever felt or sounded joyful. There's so much pressure to be perfect, to lie and say your life is okay. Now, one of the churches I went to, I want to say 2016 to 2018, was a fellowship church in Alaska. They were more open about just having faults, having addictions and issues. They never claimed they didn't. Their pastor never put on a facade of perfection. I was shocked. And yeah, there are churches out there that really do want their flock and their leaders to be authentically open, transparent. But I don't know. There's just something in fearing God creates some of the worst anxiety I have ever seen. And if you need to fear God to not rape, murder, steal, and defraud people, you're not a good person. Because good people don't need an invisible unicorn who's known as the wrathful entity to force and pressure people to doing decent behavior. I honestly believe that most religious people, if there wasn't a hell, and you didn't get in trouble for living however you wanted, they would live any way they want. And some still do. The Robert Morrises of the world. They still do. It's horrible. And I don't know, but fearing God doesn't make you a good person. It makes you a gullible person, but it doesn't make you a good person necessarily. And yes, there are people out there that actually believe that anyone who's in church believing in God is a decent human being. That's not true. That could be further from any truth. But that's the kind of world I grew up in. And it's really sad to say that I lived the first 30 years of my life in fear of an entity that kills people for not believing in the right God, also known as the Old Testament. It's a really, really sad place to be, where you live your whole life wondering what some person you've never met says or thinks about anything. It's so unnecessary. You don't need a God to be a good person. And if you fear that God more than you show compassion to people, it kind of blinks cult at me. And that terrifies me much more than any God could ever terrify me.